Commanders at all levels are tasked with protecting assets that the Department of Defense depends on to execute its missions. To do so, they must use all available resources to maximize the readiness of critical assets in order to reduce the risk to DoD missions. Risk scenarios must be continuously evaluated in order to determine the impact to assets. In simple terms, this means understanding the assets commanders need to protect and the level to which missions depend on those assets, identifying the threat actions that could degrade the assets, and determining the asset's vulnerability to those threat actions. Together, the combination of a critical asset, a relevant threat, and a vulnerability to the threat constitutes a risk scenario. Once those scenarios are understood, policy requires commanders to ensure that appropriate security controls, safeguards, and countermeasures are implemented to reduce risk to an acceptable level. In order to develop risk scenarios, commanders must receive input from multiple asset owners, mission owners, protection and intelligence professionals. Based on the risk scenarios, commanders can then make informed resource decisions to minimize risk and maximize availability of critical assets. At every organizational level, whether squadron, battalion, ship, or program level, there are numerous issues to consider. Hopefully, there are not so many issues that the commander cannot make good risk and resource decisions. As issues are aggregated at various levels in an organization, they are compounded in both complexity and number. As issues aggregate again at upper echelons of command, they are multiplied to the point that there are virtually an incalculable number of risk scenarios to consider. This situation was addressed by the Department in 2012 in DoD Instruction 5200.43, which codified the management of the Defense Security Enterprise, also known as the DSE. The DSE was developed to sustain an enterprise security framework and to provide an integrated risk management structure to guide policy implementation, inform investment decisions, and to provide a sound basis for security oversight. The DSE includes the organization and infrastructure to safeguard DoD personnel, information, operations, resources, technologies, and facilities against harm, loss, or hostile acts. This system includes personnel, physical, industrial, information, and operations security, and it aligns with other security-related efforts, including insider threat initiatives. The Department directed that a defense security framework be implemented to provide an integrated, risk-managed structure. The foundation for this security framework is based on the standardization of security processes across the enterprise and an integrated risk management structure. The framework also includes integrating threat intelligence into the process in order to incorporate threat into the risk management picture. Okay, as a practical matter, what does this mean to commanders and how does this framework benefit them? It means that the process used to assess security is changing in a way that standardizes assessments across protection disciplines, and that commanders benefit from being able to make better informed resource decisions across the stovepipes that have traditionally existed in security. Commanders will also be able to effectively communicate their security requirements in a way that helps them better compete for additional resources and reduce risk. So, when we standardize, how will the assessment processes change? Well, some protection areas that are already risk-based will change very little, like OPSEC. OPSEC already uses a 5-step process that identifies critical information assets, analyzes threats, assesses vulnerability to the threats, calculates risk, and then applies appropriate countermeasures. So for OPSEC, all that has to be done is to make sure that the metrics for evaluating risk are used consistently, both across all OPSEC assessments and other protection areas. Other protection areas like PERSEC and InfoSec will see more of a change in their assessment process, since they are currently mostly compliance-based. Although those assessments will continue to evaluate the prescribed compliance items, they will also need to incorporate the elements to do a risk-based analysis, meaning they will start considering the criticality of the information assets they protect, the threats to the assets, and the level of vulnerability to the threats. Such standardization goes a long way toward realizing the goal of an integrated DSE. However, standardization alone is not enough to realize the benefits to commanders, because there are still challenges associated with drawing meaningful conclusions from such a large volume of risk scenarios. This is where automation comes into play. To handle the volume of data and make it useful to decision makers, automation is critical. It does not and cannot replace the knowledge and contribution of security professionals who conduct the assessments, but it can quickly and efficiently calculate the risk from hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of risk scenarios, transforming the data into useful knowledge. Automation also helps achieve the benefit to commanders of allowing them to communicate their security requirements in a way that helps them compete for additional resources. Automation can rapidly compare the risk-reducing benefit of various courses of action in a way that lets commanders prioritize options based on risk reduction and risk reduction per dollar. This allows them to make informed decisions and effectively compete in the budgeting process. Finally, there are some very practical considerations about implementing a DSC risk framework. Mainly at issue is the fact that many security operations are short-staffed and already have a high workload. The vision and requirement of a risk-based DSC framework will never be achieved by expecting more work from currently task-saturated security professionals. This is the other reason for incorporating automation into the process. By modernizing our assessment processes, security professionals can leverage automation to decrease the time required to do an assessment, analyze it, and generate meaningful reports. In quick summary, the important points to remember are that the DSC is driving the standardization of assessment-based processes into a risk-based construct. Commanders will experience the benefits of this by being better able to allocate resources to reduce risk. And automation will help achieve the goal of an overarching enterprise framework while minimizing additional requirements on existing staff. You're probably wondering how these processes can be automated and what that will look like. We'll cover that in another video. Thank you.